For many British Columbians, wealth is tied up in their home. This adds some extra complications when planning your estate. Joining us now to discuss what to consider doing in this situation is Paul Lindsey of MacMillan Estate Planning. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jennifer.
So what are some of the estate planning considerations we should be thinking about?
Well, as you quite rightly say, the home is usually the main asset in our estate. And so it follows that when we're talking about retirement planning with families that we work with, they will often ask us about when, how, and indeed if they should transfer their home during their lifespan. Now, the first thing to say is this: there's some good news here, because if we transfer our home in our lifetime or when we die, we are unlikely to trigger any tax consequences inside our estate. However, there are definitely some considerations to have regard to. Now, as I say, if we transfer, we don't incur any negative tax consequences. But that isn't always the case for our children or the beneficiaries to whom we transfer the property to. Beyond that, we have to be cognizant that we've transferred ownership of the asset, so we don't own it anymore. So we've lost control. And if further down the road we perhaps wanted to sell that house, well, we need the consent of the new owner. Beyond that, we need to be thinking about third-party claims. Again, if we've transferred ownership of the property in our lifetime, what if the new owner finds themselves involved in, say, a matrimonial claim, a creditor action, or even some litigation? Because all of this depletes, it reduces the security that we have in our home.
Okay, so now how about when people pass away and property transfers? How does probate play into that scenario?
That's a great question. And of course, when we talk about probate, we're referencing the historic process, I suppose, whereby our personal representatives need to make an application to court to obtain control of our estate so that it can be managed. Now, probate is often time-consuming, it can be costly, and the biggest issue we have here in BC is that the provincial court will come along and take approximately 1.4% of the value of our estate as a one-off probate fee. Now, I mean, that can have a significant impact on our estate as a whole. And coming back to the point around the family home, well, if we still hold it at our death, when it goes through probate, it's going to be subject to that fee. Now, of course, if we've already transferred it during our lifetime, from a probate fee perspective, that's great. But we need to go into any such transfer with our eyes very much open, certainly to the risks that I was talking about previously.
All right, and finally, what are some of the solutions then?
Well, there are solutions, is the first thing. Once we are over the age of 65, we have the ability to roll assets into a trust that we create in our lifetime. And we get to retain control over the assets in the trust. We get to utilize that principle, that main residence exemption, so we don't sort of lose out from a tax perspective. And the idea is that when we die, the trust doesn't. It keeps on going. And the net effect is that as a result, the assets that are in that trust aren't subject to those fees. If we step away for a moment from thinking about our real estate, we can also avoid probate on other assets in our estate. So let's say we have shares in a family company, we could use a private will to avoid probate there. Or if we have investment portfolios, we can use certain investment strategies or holdings to allow us to avoid probate on those assets too.
Thank you so much for your time and for breaking down this very important topic that can be a bit difficult to discuss and navigate. That is Paul Lindsey. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.